Good morning, and welcome to CabWriter 3, Beta 2. We have some new features for you. Some of them are pretty exciting, and some of them are just useful. I'm going to start out with one of the useful ones, and I call it Update Defaults Files. And you'll find it in the Extensions menu, CabWriter, Update Defaults Files. And what this does is it goes through your defaults files, including your user defaults. Any user defaults you've created and saved in CabWriter will be updated with this. And by update, here's what I mean. Every time a new version of CabWriter is released, there's the potential and the probability, actually, that we've added some defaults, and perhaps we might have even deleted some old defaults. So it will go through all of those files, and if those files have old defaults that are no longer used in them, it will take them out. If it's missing new defaults, it'll put them in and use the default. And if it finds, on a very rare occasion, that for some reason that user file, or maybe even the CabWriter file, has a blank default, it will let you know. It'll give you an error message and tell you what file has a blank. You'll have to find that blank by searching each of the tabs, but it will tell you which one to look for. So, just as an example, I have loaded in my user files the old CabWriter comprehensive video for CabWriter 2 default files for the Martha LaBelle kitchen. So let's just bring those up. These were defaults that were generated by CabWriter 2. I'm just going to bring one up here, Martha LaBelle baking base. I'm going to load that. And if I go to CNC setup, CNC boring, you look down here, there's a bunch of defaults missing. And that's because these are defaults that have been added in CabWriter 3. So I want to update those user files. I've got quite a few of them. So what I'll do, by the way, just let me show you another one. This was the one I just showed you. I'm going to go down to the bottom here and show you this one. All of them should have that same problem, or a problem very similar. And notice they're missing down here. So now what I'm going to do is go to the Extensions, CabWriter, Update Default Files. And this can take on the order of 30 seconds, or if you have a slow machine, it could even be a minute. So be patient, wait, don't do anything until you get the completion message. So we'll wait patiently here. And there we go. It says, updating of defaults files has been completed. Let's take a look at them. We'll look at the first and last one again. Not only are they not blank, but they have the correct values. And one more. There we go. They've got the correct values again. So using this tool not only corrects your user defaults, but if there's a problem in any of the installed defaults that came with CabWriter, it'll correct that too. Although that should never be the case. but it does go through them and check. Now there are two types of faults that you might get when you do this. One is, and it's catastrophic, if it finds that one or more or even the folders of the supplied defaults with CabWriter are missing. It'll give you an error message and it will abort. And you're going to have to fix that. And that probably means reinstalling CabWriter. Those should never be a problem, but if they are, it will tell you. The other type of problem that you're going to have to fix is occasionally, very rarely, but occasionally you might have a user default that has the default it should have, but that default is blank. Literally blank. Not zero, not something like that, but blank. It will tell you that. And the default message would look something like the following. This is a page of the release notes that came with CabWriter 3 Beta 2. And notice it says, there are defaults that are blank and must be fixed before a file can be saved. If the blank defaults are displayed by a drop-down box, you must select a valid option. When you have corrected the blank defaults on the given CabWriter Settings tab, remember to click the Update button. The offending user file is. Now this could say user, it could say metric, it could say imperial. So it's giving you a hint as to where to look. And then it'll give you the actual file. So you want to go and load that file into CabWriter. Go and find the blank setting, correct it, and then save the file to this same file name in your user settings. And that will fix the problem. Let's move along. The next feature I want to show you is we now have the ability to print Avery 5160 labels. And it's pretty simple. First thing you might notice is there is a new icon, which is a printing icon down here that says Printing Options. That icon and this icon, I'm sorry, not that icon, but this icon, CabWriter Production Documentation, and File CabWriter Production Documentation all do the same thing. They open the CabWriter Production Documentation dialog box. This is that familiar message that says be patient because this could take quite a while. And there's the new Production Documentation dialog box. Notice it's twice as wide. This is what you're familiar with. And this is the new label printing capability. Let's look at this. Right now I have a number of scenes up here. And one of the things I have is a cut list scene, purchased parts scene, and a DXF scene. And I've assigned those to various types of reports. In other words, my door and draw report has been assigned the purchased parts scene. The cut list report has been assigned the cut list scene, and the DXF report the DXF scene. On the label printing side, first thing I need to do is to assign what information I want on each line. There's 5 lines of printing in the label. And so I can assign whatever I want here. I'm going to assign the component number here. I'm going to assign the subassembly as the next one, or actually, I guess, the description. And I will assign finished dimensions as the third line. Now, by the way, finished dimensions is the one you would want to choose if you're doing DXF cutting. If you're cutting on a panel saw or a table saw, you might want the resize dimensions. Those are the initial cuts. In other words, things may be resized to a longer length, longer width, or a thicker thickness. And if you're cutting on the table saw or the panel saw, those are the dimensions you probably want on your label. But if you're doing CNC, you want the finished dimensions. So I'll choose that. Material name is a good piece of information to have. And info. Info is the one that tells you whether the length, width, or thickness has been resized. So that's interesting information to have. Lastly, I need to assign components for printing by the report. Now, if I want to print things for my DXF cuts, I would choose DXF report. If I want to print things for my cut list, if I'm doing things on the table saw or panel saw, I might want to choose cut list. If I'm sending things out and I'm getting them back from my third-party door and draw vendor, I might want labels for those so that when they come in I can stick labels on them. Right now I'm using the DXF report. Having done all of that, I get a sample of what the label looks like. For instance, let me change something here. I'm going to change this top line from component number to subassembly. Notice now it says subassembly C11LB3. Now this is just an example. If I go back to component number, notice not only does it give me the component number, which is a component, but it gives me one of two. If I have two of them in there, you'll get two labels. One of them will say 1 of 2, and the other one will say 2 of 2. So you get a label for each part. Now all you have to do, once you've done this, is use the print preview. And you'll get a feeling for what it's going to look like. By the way, this is not a whole page wide and it's not a whole page high. I tried to keep this box to a reasonable size. Now this box has to remain open when I want to print the labels. If I don't leave that box open and I say print labels, it'll tell me to open the box. And the reason is this is just like printing a web page in your browser. If you're not on the web page, you can't print it. And that's exactly what this is. It's a web page. And in order to print it, it has to be open. So now I can say print labels. It'll ask me what printer. And I'm going to print these to PDF file instead of printing them to paper. And it wants to know where. I'm going to go to my desktop. And I already have printed them. And I forget what I called them. I think I called them CabWriter Comprehensive. Yeah, there they are. CabWriter Comprehensive Raised Panels. So I'm going to pretend I'm going to print that. I'll choose that and I'll say save, and it will create the PDF file. I'm just going to show you what that PDF file looks like. So I'm going to close my preview, and I'll close this and show you what those labels look like printed to a PDF file. Now notice this is a full page wide. And after 30 labels, it page breaks and does another 30 labels. Each page will have 30 labels. Notice that, let me see if I can pick one here. Well, notice this is 2 of 2. There's 1 of 2. And if there's 3 parts, you'll get a similar kind of behavior. But that's what your labels will look like. And these have to be Avery labels. I think it's 5160. So that's the label printing capability. Please, by the way, there's more detail about all of this and for all of these new features in the release notes. So please read the release notes thoroughly. And let's move on again. Okay, in this model I've got a bunch of cabinets. Some base cabinets, like these, some upper cabinets, and I also have an upper divided cabinet and a base divided cabinet. And notice that in these upper divided and base divided cabinets I have fixed shelves here and a lot of places here. A lot of fixed shelves. One of the things we've done now, if I go to the back, the other thing I want to point out is notice that these cabinets were built with planted backs. No inset backs, just planted. And this next feature applies only to planted backs. So let me go around back, because we're interested in the backs. And we'll notice that around all of the backs are drill holes, including for the fixed shelves. There's a number of fixed shelves in this one. Same here. These are all fixed shelves. And so now, this is particularly useful if you're cutting these on CNC machine. Pilot holes are drilled so that you don't have to worry about that. Let's look at the defaults that control these. Notice down here we've added some defaults. Planted back construction holes. One of the things you can do is enable the drilling of those or not. Notice we have a top and bottom margin. What is that? Well, that's this. That is how close to the edge is the first hole on the top and bottom, and the sides, by the way. And right now it's set for 1.5 inches, so I should find that's the center of that hole. So if I go from there along the blue edge down to here, that's 1.5 inches. That's this default right here. And the 5 millimeter is the diameter of the holes. The 6 inches is the base back maximum hole spacing. So this is a base cabinet. Let's just see what the hole spacing turns out to be. It cannot be more than 6 inches. So let me find the center of this one. Let's go down along the blue axis, and I'll see if I can find the center of this one. There we go. And it's 5 59/64. Pretty cool. It's not 6. So it'll always be less than 6. And on the upper backs, the spacing will be less than 4. We could check that out, but we'll see a very similar result. If I find the center of this, go down along the blue. To the center of this. It's 3 63/64, 1/64 short of 4 inches. So there you go. That's what those control. And we now drill all those holes on the CNC machine. You don't have to do it with your drill. The next new feature I want to show you is a feature that probably should have been in here for some time. But it's the ability to add hinge plate holes in cabinets that meet 3 criteria. One is it's a CNC project. 2 is you're not drawing shelf holes. For some reason you've decided not to draw the shelf holes. And 3, your draw your door is so tall that it violates the rule of how far hinge plate holes should be. And that's about 25 inches. So we have a new default, and I'll show you that first. And that's right here. It says maximum hinge plate spacing, 25 inches. Obviously it's a default, you can change it, but that's about the maximum that you should have hinge plate holes spaced. Now, like I said, in order to demonstrate this, I have to have a CNC project, which I do. I have to have chosen not to drill base shelf system holes. And the reason is that if you actually draw these system holes, number one, you can't draw hinge holes over top of them, you'll get an error. But number two, you would use those shelf holes to place your hinge plates, your additional hinge plates. So you wouldn't need this feature. So the second criteria is that you're not drawing shelf system holes. And the third criteria is that the top and bottom hinge plates are further than the maximum distance of 25 inches. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to update this, close it. Whoops, nope, I want to bring that up again. I'm going to demonstrate that by making a base cabinet 100 inches, countertop height of 100 inches. You wouldn't do this. You would probably use a divided base, a tall divided base. But I'm just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make the countertop height 100 inches. So I'll update this and close it. And now I'm going to redraw this cabinet. And I'm not going to use the stored defaults. I'm going to use these new ones. And I'll get rid of the base door. And if we look at this closely, we'll see we have hinge plate holes there, hinge plate holes here, hinge plate holes here, hinge plate holes here, and finally here. And if I were to measure these, I would find they're not further apart than 25 inches. So this would normally be something you might do on a divided base or something that you're going to make a broom closet or something like that. And it's tall, 90 inches tall, and the door is the door is close to 90 inches. And so you need extra hinge plates. But that's the feature. That's what controls it, and those are the conditions for creating them. Okay? The next new feature I want to demonstrate is how to hide components or cabinets in a DXF or cut list scene. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to do that. One might be, suppose you want to create DXF for one and only one cabinet in your design. Perhaps because you know that one's not going to change and you want to get it into the production, and so you want to create DXF files for just that cabinet. Or suppose you want to leave out some cabinets in a cut list for some reason. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to create, right now I have two scenes. I've got a cut list scene, which you're looking at, and I have a DXF scene, which you're now looking at. And what I want to do is I want to create a DXF for just this cabinet. And then I'm going to create a cut list for just this cabinet. Notice this one's a base cabinet, and it's cabinet C4. This is an upper cabinet, and it's cabinet C6. So I'm going to create a DXF for just this cabinet and a cut list for just this one. The way I'm going to do that, I'll look at these from the front, and I'll select the ones I don't want. I'll unlock them. And I'm going to select up here in Entity Info, I'm going to select the visibility or hide icon. By the way, there's a bug in SketchUp that doesn't quite show all of this in some machines. I happen to be a lucky one, and my machine doesn't show everything here. But nonetheless, if I hit this hide icon, those are gone from the DXF scene. So now if I go back, I got to remember to update this. So I'll update my scene. And now I'll go to the cut list scene, and again I'll go to the front view, select the cabinets I don't want, and I'll unlock them, and again go to the hide button, update my scene, and now I'm going to produce my production documentation, and I'm going to get a simple spreadsheet, Excel compatible, a DXF, and a cut list plus FX cut list. This will take a little while. But we're being patient. There we go. And now I'm going to open those folders. And here we are. This is the cut list. Notice only the upper cabinet C6 is in the cut list. That's the entire cut list, and it only has upper cabinet C6. That's what we wanted, just the cut list for cabinet C6. Now let me open up the DXF file. Okay, here's the DXF file. This is two of the sides. Notice it's cabinet C4 lower. The cut list had C6 upper. Now let's just make sure that all of this is, in fact, just C6. I'll come in here and zoom in. That's all C4. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I mean, C4. We want C4. That's all C4. That's C4. All of this is C4. Nothing else, just C4. So that's what we wanted. Now let me explain a little what's behind this and why it works. If I go to the Styles dialog box here and go to the In Model Styles, I have three styles down here. One called CabWriter Non-Section, one called CabWriter Perspective, and one called CabWriter Section. These styles are loaded every time you open up SketchUp. They're CabWriter styles, and we supply them. And I designed these styles to make this kind of function and other functions with our automatic creation of scenes to make those work. So please don't delete them. Don't change them unless you really know what you're doing and really think you have to. But these are designed to make these things work. So they built in them is the idea of remembering cabinets and parts that were hidden and remembering them by scene. So if I go back to the DXF scene, that's my one cabinet that I wanted for the DXF, and this is the one cabinet I wanted for my cut list. Now I can bring all that back. I can go to View, Hidden Geometry, and now I can see all the stuff that I've hidden, and I can bring it all back. I'll just select it all and go to Entity Info and uncheck this icon. Now I've got everything back, and I can lock it and recreate my scene, remembering to update it. Choose the do nothing to save here. And there we go. So now my DXF scene hasn't been updated, but I can do exactly the same thing to the DXF scene, and my cut list scene is back the way it was. So I could actually use this technique, for instance, if I wanted to have a different scene for each cabinet. I could start off with one cut list scene. I could copy it or recreate other scenes and create a scene for each cabinet. And then if I wanted to, I could create DXFs or cut lists by cabinet. That might be useful if you have a CNC machine and you want to do one cabinet at a time while the others are being cut. You might want to be building one. So that may be a way to save time in the shop. But anyway, that's how that feature works. It depends on these three scenes. And by the way, I suggest if you make your own scenes, if you make a perspective scene, I suggest that you use the CabWriter perspective style. And if you make a non-section scene, use the non-section style. And if you use sectioning, use the section style. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to move on to the next feature, which is pretty exciting. So let's get on to it. Okay, now the next feature I want to demonstrate is mirroring cabinets. But before I do, I want to review a feature that we added in Beta 1, and that is copying and moving. Remember, we added this icon here, the Move Cabinet tool. And I can use that, for instance, to take this cabinet and move it, here. That was pretty easy. But suppose I didn't want to copy or move it. I wanted to copy it so that I had the original back here. That's pretty easy too. All I do is select the cabinet, select the Move Copy tool, hit Control, and be patient. There we go. So now I've moved it and copied it. So now I have two copies of it. But we're going to use that capability to do something even more special. So let me show you that. Okay, so what I want to do with this design, and to see it better, I'm going to remove, or not remove, but make this wall invisible. So what I want to do with this design is I want to make everything symmetrical around the center of this window. That means I want to move these cabinets over here, and I want them to be looking the other way. So let me get on with that. First thing I'm going to do, choose this cabinet with the Move and Copy tool. Don't forget the copy. And I'm going to move it to here. And now what I'm going to do is I'll choose it, context click. You probably, oh yes you can. Right down here is the new tool, Mirror Cabinet. That's the tool I want. And it asks, do I want to use the stored defaults or new defaults? I'm going to use the stored defaults. And there we go. Now I have that cabinet in the corner where I want it. It's symmetrical around this center line of the window. Looks just like this one. And now sometimes you got to do things in two steps. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to move this cabinet first. So I'll select the Move tool and the Control key for copy. Now here's one of the things I want to notice. Notice that the green diamond or triangle rather is on the right. That's telling me this cabinet was designed and laid out right to left. So I have to do the same thing here. And since I want this style to overlap with this style like this one does, I'm going to start here, I think, and go this direction. Notice I'm going right to left. And so there we are. We've got it moved over. Now let's move this one. Oops. Let's do the Move Copy first. And notice this one is left to right. And so I'm going to go here because I have overlapping styles. Now that's pretty ugly. So let's use our mirroring to fix it. CabWriter, Mirror Cabinet, yes. And there you go. And now I have to do the same thing to this cabinet. We'll wait and be patient. Sometimes these take a while. Not sure why this takes so long, but we'll just be patient. And there we go. Now we've got symmetrical cabinets on either side of that window, just like we wanted. So just to show you, by the way, this is cabinet number 11. This is cabinet number 4. This is cabinet number 6. And this is cabinet number 12. These are actually independent cabinets. I can change this cabinet and it will not change this cabinet. And the same here. I can change this and it will not change this cabinet. So there you go. It's a pretty handy feature and I'm pretty excited about it. We have one more feature to show you, so let me just get on with that. Okay, you've seen this model before, but I don't know if you happen to notice as we were going through it and creating cut lists and DXFs. This is a divided base. It's 3 boxes, fairly tall, divided base. Behind each of these doors used to be nothing. But now if I take the base doors off and I look close, I'll see I have one shelf behind that door. A shelf, one shelf behind that door. This wasn't a door, there was no door there. This was a door, one shelf behind that. This was a door, one shelf behind that. These are all fixed shelves. These shelves I'm pointing out are adjustable shelves. So what we've done is every time you create a divided cabinet, whether it's a divided upper or divided base, and you specify a door, either 1 or 2, but if you specify a door, CabWriter now puts in there one adjustable shelf. It used to be we would put nothing in there because we didn't know how tall that compartment was and how many shelves it might require, and you might have different number of requirements depending on the height of the doors or what have you. But that required you actually hand drawing a shelf, making it a custom part, and making it a CabWriter part, and then copying it. Now all you have to do, in fact, if I looked at this one over here, I'll take off the upper doors. Now all you have to do is, if you don't like that, you maybe want 2 or 3 shelves, move copy, well, first of all, move it down, and then do move copy using the native SketchUp tools to copy these upwards. In fact, I'll do one here. I'll move this down. I'll move it down 8 inches or 7 inches. And let's say I want 3 of them. So I want them 5 inches apart. So I'll now use the Move Copy tool. These are the native SketchUp Move Copy tools. And I'll move it up 5 inches. And I want 2 of them, so I'll say 2x. Okay, so now I've got 3 shelves. If I look at them in the extended entity info, notice this was shelf 1. I copied this, it's still shelf 1. But in the extended entity info, do not change this in the Make CabWriter component. Always change instance names in the in the entity info. So I'm going to make this one shelf 2. I'll make this one shelf 3. And there you go. Shelf 1, shelf 2, shelf 3. It's as easy as that. So that should help you out a lot now that we're putting adjustable shelves in there. So now you have the feature for fixed shelves, adjustable shelves. This new divided cabinet that we included in Beta 1 is becoming a very powerful cabinet. And you may find you want to use it often in place of the standard base and upper cabinets. It's pretty powerful. Well, that winds up Beta 2, and I hope you're as excited as I am about some of these new features. But we're not done. There's probably going to be one more beta before the final release. So until Beta 3, have a good day.